is not the gospel that is being referred here, then either this verse has no context and has no application to me as a Christian today, or Allah was not able to preserve that document, which, I mean, we know exactly what the Gospels looked like in Muhammad's day in the 7th century. I mean, I see no indication that the author of the Quran had read any of the Old or the New Testament. I mean, Muhammad is said traditionally in the Islamic narrative to have been illiterate.
Wes Huff shares why Islam is not reliable compared to the Christianity religion, and this is absolutely amazing. So let's get right into it. Shout out to Daily Dose of Wisdom for this video.
I think we're dealing with something very different with the Quran. The Quran comes 600 years after Jesus.
Okay.
And it comes in a time frame where, so the Bible is 66 books written over a period of 1,600 years on 3 different continents by close to 40 different authors in 3 different languages. The Quran is one book. It comes in one language, Hijazi script Arabic. It comes from one location, the Arabian Peninsula. And it appears, at least if we're taking the traditional narrative, to have one author. If we're talking about, if we want to give kind of credence to the traditional Islamic narrative with Muhammad. I think part of the problem, though, is that the Quran has very little awareness of what's actually going on in the Old and the New Testament.
Dang. I think so many people like to use that example as a negative. Oh, the Bible's written up by thousands of people. Obviously, it wasn't just one person. It was around 40 people. But I think that also authenticates it as well. We know that there was no one like, I don't know, scheming up, making their own cult type thing like Muhammad.
I mean, I see no indication that the author of the Quran had read any of the Old or the New Testament. I mean, Muhammad is said traditionally in the Islamic narrative to have been illiterate. And even if he was literate, it's not entirely clear whether the Old or New Testaments would have been translated into Arabic in a way that he would have been able to get the information from anyways in his time. However, the traditional narrative ascribes Muhammad as being a 7th century Arab caravaner. And so what we get within the narratives of the Quran are things that are floating around orally by Christians and Jews and Zoroastrians that are kind of adjacent to the stories that we find within the said scriptures of those religious worldviews. And I think that's exactly what we draw out when we analyze the data of the stories of, say, Abraham or Moses or David or Jesus or Mary or John the Baptist in the Quran. What you're getting is kind of sifted through oral stories, mostly that are folk tales about these individuals. There's only one quoted verse of either the Old or the New Testament in the Quran, and that's the lex talionis, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Now compare that to the close to 900 either direct quotations or allusions of the Old Testament in the New Testament.
Right. That's not even close. The New Testament is constantly quoting the Old Testament. Constantly. And he's going to get into where he talks about how they constantly get like characters in the Bible completely, totally different for the story.
Close. The New Testament is a Jewish saturated document that comes directly out of the Hebrew Bible and the Old Testament. Whereas the Quran is kind of in its own category and actually confuses and conflates a number of stories. So I was sitting down with a friend the other day and he was showing me some, he does a lot of Muslim evangelism and apologetics. And there are a number of stories in the Quran where they take, say, stories from Exodus, Judges, and 1st and 2nd Kings and squish it all together in that the details seem to be mixed up. And if you know the Bible stories, you start reading and you go, wait a minute, that's the wrong guy being told to go down and collect water. And if his army, laps the water up like a dog, then, do a certain things with that group. And then if they use their hands to
that's Gideon,
the water into their mouth, then do something else with that group, right? That's the story of Gideon.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
But if I'm remembering correctly, I think they ascribe that to Moses in the Quran. I could be wrong about that. Either way, So I'm going off the top of my head.
So the Quran mistakes King Saul for Gideon. That's funny. Whoopsie. That would make more sense.
These stories are squished together. Where in the...
Let's see what it says. When Saul marched forth with his army, he cautioned, Allah will test you with a river, so whoever drinks his fill from it is not with me. Dang. Except a sip from the hollow of his hands is definitely with me. They will drink their fill except for a few. When the remaining faithful will be crossed. That's crazy.
Xerxes' right-hand man. What's his name?
Haman?
Haman. So Haman, that's a Persian name in a Persian context, right, with King Xerxes. In the Quran, that is the right-hand man for Pharaoh in the Exodus story. So we're getting all these details confused.
That's crazy. Pharaoh declared, O chiefs, I know of no other God for you but myself. So bake bricks out of clay for me, O Haman, and build a high tower. That is wild. See, things like that just prove that historically it's not correct. Historically, they have a problem. That's wild.
So I don't think the Quran is on the same standing at all. Not only that, but I think the Quran has a bigger issue in that in chapter 3, verse 3 of the Quran, it says that God, Allah, sent down to Muhammad a book and truth, right? That is the Quran, confirming that which came before it. And that he...
Yep. And that's the biggest problem, I would say, with the Quran in Islam, because you could just say, well, your very own book tells you that you have to ask the people, the messengers, Christians, to judge you and see if you are actually the true religion. And Christians all the time are like, you see right there, we're judging you. You're not a true religion.
Revealed that truth in the Torah and the Gospel. So we have that in chapter 3. But then we have this really big issue throughout the Quran where then in chapter 5, it says something similar. It says, say, O people of the book, you are standing on nothing until you uphold the law of the Torah and the gospel. And that which has been revealed to you from your Lord, and that which has been revealed to you from your Lord will surely increase many of them in transgressions and disbelief. So do not grieve over the disbelieving people. And we have this continual refrain within the Quran that God sent down the Torah to Moses, sent down the gospel to Jesus, and sent down the Quran to Moses. And then it kind of comes to its culmination. And this is the verse that I bring up to my Muslim friends when I'm talking with them. Because in chapter 5, verse 46 and 47, we have once again this chain of custody. We sent, following the footsteps, Jesus, the son of Mary, confirming that which came down before him in the Torah. Right? The Torah was given to Moses. And we gave him the gospel. Right? So then the gospel confirms the Torah, in which was guidance and light, confirming that which preceded it in the Torah as guidance and instruction for the righteous. Okay, so now we have, these links, right? Keep in mind, if you picture a visual chain with links, okay, you have the Torah, you have the gospel, and then you have the Quran. And then verse 47 of chapter 5 of the Quran says, and let people of the gospel, right, that's you and me, Christians, judge by what Allah has revealed therein. Well, what has Allah been revealed to the Christians? Well, that's the gospel. It's already stated in the previous verse. But it says, whoever does not judge by what Allah has revealed, then it is those who are the defiantly disobedient. Now, this is a problem, right?
Yep.
Because if the Muslim wants to assert that, say, the gospel, because it's been corrupted, is not the gospel that is being referred here, then either this verse has no context and has no application to me as a Christian today, or Allah was not able to preserve that, document, which, I mean, we know exactly what the Gospels looked like in Muhammad's day in the 7th century.
Right.
Or he allowed it to be corrupted for some...
Yeah, like, they always say, Allah's words can never be corrupted. But you said the Christian Bible, you said the Torah and the New Testament are corrupted. You say that all the time. Then what's the problem? They're constantly contradicting. Come on, get it together. That is a problem. So that's absolutely wild. Shout out to Wes Huff and Daily Dose of Wisdom. If you want to watch their entire podcast, I encourage you guys to do that. It's super interesting. And yeah, guys, if you've never decided to follow Jesus, I encourage you to do that today. Guys, Christianity is the most reliable religion out there. So do that today. In the description below, you will be able to click a link to help you to decide to follow Jesus for the first time. Do that today.